Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about Benjamin Franklin. And I mean, we're really going to get to know him. Not just the face on the $100 bill, but the actual man behind the myth.
Yeah, we all know that portrait, right? He looks wise, calm, maybe a little stout. But that static image, it hides a man who was constantly in motion, driven by this incredible curiosity and a pretty revolutionary idea of what it even means to be good. So let's meet the real Benjamin Franklin.
So first up, let's get beyond that $100 bill. This guy was an action-oriented adventurer. Seriously, we have to completely shatter this image of a man who was just stuck at his desk all day. The Franklin we meet in his own writings is a man of the outdoors, a man of action.
I mean, he wasn't just some brainiac. The man was athletic. He loved swimming for hours at a time. He crossed the Atlantic, which was no small thing back then, 7 times. And get this, he was so convinced about the benefits of fresh air that he actually got into an argument with John Adams, his roommate on a diplomatic trip, just to keep a window open. This was a man who engaged with the world physically, not just with his mind.
Okay, so this brings us to the next big thing about him, an insatiable curiosity. He basically treated the entire world like his own personal laboratory. See, that love for being out and about? Well, it fueled everything.
And what's so fascinating is how he found these profound questions in the most ordinary things. You know, he'd wonder why the tea leaves in his cup settled in a specific pattern. Or he'd study seaweed to figure out how tiny crabs just seemed to appear in it. He just never took the world for granted.
And here's a perfect example of his method in action. So one night in 1743, a big storm, a nor'easter, blocks his view of a lunar eclipse. Bummer, right? But then he finds out his brother in Boston, who's northeast of him, saw the eclipse just fine. Now wait a second, how could the storm hit Philadelphia first if it was coming from the northeast? Instead of just shrugging it off, Franklin starts interviewing travelers. He gathers data and he proves that nor'easters actually move up the coast from the southwest, a huge meteorological discovery, all born from a ruined evening.
And he was always observing. On his sea voyages, he noticed that the water was warmer in some spots, so he started taking the ocean's temperature every single day. And just by doing that, he charted the Gulf Stream. He even calculated that this current could slow ships down by 70 miles a day, and he immediately published his findings to make sailing better and safer for everyone.
But here's the really crucial point. For Franklin, knowledge wasn't just for showing off how smart you were. Its highest purpose was to be put to work. It had to be useful.
This idea actually led him to completely reframe morality itself. He basically decided that an action wasn't bad just because some old book said it was forbidden. No, it was forbidden because it was tangibly harmful to people. And on the flip side, a good deed wasn't good just because you were commanded to do it. It was commanded because it was beneficial. Virtue, for Franklin, was all about improving the human condition.
Now this core belief really set him apart from other great minds of the time. Thomas Jefferson, for instance, thought a genius like Isaac Newton was above the messy drudgery of governing. Franklin, he totally disagreed. He argued that if Newton were the pilot of a ship in a storm, his scientific genius wouldn't excuse him from grabbing the helm. For Franklin, public service was the ultimate purpose of genius.
And he had a repeatable formula for turning this philosophy into real-world action. First, identify a problem. Second, gather a small committed group. Third, propose a practical solution. And fourth, get the whole community mobilized. This simple, powerful formula is exactly how he founded the very first subscription library in North America.
And this wasn't just a one-time thing. Using this exact same method, he became the architect of his community. A volunteer fire department, a public hospital, a university. These weren't government projects. They were born from Franklin's belief that regular citizens could and should come together to build a better society themselves.
All this experience building communities would eventually lead to his most profound transformation. But this wasn't about building an institution. This was about the painful process of tearing down and rebuilding his own identity.
You have to understand, for most of his life, Franklin was a passionate Briton. He lived in London for 16 years, he loved the city, and he worked tirelessly to strengthen the British Empire because he truly believed that America was its future. He saw himself as an Englishman through and through.
But that identity began to unravel, slowly at first and then all at once. For years, he tried to work within the system, but the breaking point came in 1774. He was called into a government building called the Cockpit, and for an entire hour, British officials just publicly tore him to shreds. He stood there completely silent, taking all of it, but he left that room a changed man.
In that moment, he realized that the British government didn't see the American colonies as equals with legitimate problems. They saw them as subordinates whose complaints were a crime. And as he later wrote, when simply complaining becomes a crime, hope just dies. His dream of a great, equal British-American empire was over.
The cost of this transformation was just immense and deeply personal. His own son, William, whom he adored, was the royal governor of New Jersey, and he chose to remain loyal to the crown. That political divide became a canyon between father and son that never healed. Franklin never forgave him.
So after this whole life of invention, diplomacy, revolution, and incredible personal loss, what is Franklin's most enduring legacy? It's really something that goes beyond any one thing he did. It's found in his idea of public service. I mean, here was one of the most brilliant men of his time, but he didn't believe his job was to force his own vision on everybody else. He saw his role as serving the will of the people.
So what was the secret? The thing that made him so effective as a scientist, a leader, and just as a person? Well, it wasn't just about being a genius.
It was this. He had what's been called the spirit which is not too sure it is right. That profound intellectual humility, the willingness to question his own assumptions, to actually listen to other people, and to accept that he might be wrong, that was the real source of his strength. It's what allowed him to learn, to adapt, and to lead with a wisdom that still speaks to us today.